It's just so important that we continue to grow smart within our state.
We're very excited that housing is having its moment. The need has always been there.
The planning and construction of communities that create compact, mixed-use neighborhoods in close proximity.
Transit needs to be frequent and reliable, while housing nearby needs to be affordable.
And thankfully, we have some very interesting examples going on in Rhode Island.
And it can only happen with smart planning and good collaboration.
We want to today better understand and act on what we think is a once-in-a-generation opportunity before us to create a public transportation system that is sufficiently robust and sufficiently integrated to help address many of the pressing challenges of our time. First and foremost, expanding affordable housing and transportation choices, but also promoting sustainable economic recovery and community revitalization, racial equity, and contributing to the fight against climate change and the effort to adapt to climate change. And this once-in-a-generation opportunity, we think, has been created by an unusual convergence of pretty strong catalytic forces. We have massive new federal funding for public transportation and other infrastructure. We have the recent adoption, with a big push from Grow Smart Rhode Island and a number of you in this audience, the recent adoption of a bold state transit vision and master plan, laying out a 20-year or so blueprint for a much more robust, much more user-friendly, much more extensive and integrated public transportation system. And then, I think as a result of the pandemic, we have enhanced concern about promoting public health and racial and social equity. So a lot of stars are aligned. There's a lot of positive energy in this room and in the bigger room of Rhode Island. And speaking of this room, I'm pleased to report that we have a very diverse and influential audience here today. I think we have the policy world's equivalent of the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker. We've got local and state and federal government officials. We have a lot of folks from NGOs. We have a lot of folks from specific issue areas: housing, transportation, historic preservation, racial justice, et cetera, and more. And if you want to get a more in-depth view of who's here, I believe on our resource table out front, there's a list of all the registrants. So take a look at that at your leisure. I also want to go over a few other logistical points. We're going to be recording this morning's session, and you'll be able to access it soon on our website's front page. The gentleman who's recording it doesn't like a lot of recognition, but he's such a good, talented guy, I have to give him a little recognition, and that's our ace communications consultant and videographer, Joseph Fomasith of Jai Communications. Let's have a little hand for Joseph. We encourage you to post comments to social media throughout this morning's program using the hashtag TOD4RI. And with 200 influential people in front of me, I have to make a little pitch for Grow Smart Rhode Island. If you like what you hear today, if you think that we as a big tent, big picture organization are helping Rhode Island deal with key, sometimes unsexy, but incredibly important challenges facing the state, then please consider donating to us. We are a nonprofit, a 501c3. When I started at Grow Smart Rhode Island 24 years ago, there were 5 state smart growth organizations in New England. 5 of the 6 states had a smart growth organization. Fast forward to today, there are only 2, Grow Smart Rhode Island and Grow Smart Maine. And we intend to stay in business and to expand, but we need your support. This is not as easy a venture to raise money for as human services or single-issue groups. So we have envelopes at our resource table. Some of our staffers are carrying envelopes with them, And I don't want to do a hard sell, but what the hell? You get the sentiment. Speaking of support, we've gotten very generous support from a number of sponsors today. And I want to give them their due by reading their names to you. First, the United Way of Rhode Island, which really is making this whole event possible as part of a grant on transit equity that they bestowed upon us a year and a half ago. So we are especially grateful to them. Also, I want to mention Housing Works Rhode Island, a special shout out to them. They're a longtime close collaborator, partner, incredible thought leader on housing and community development issues facing Rhode Island. And they've helped us with the agenda today and with research in the past. And then a number of other great sponsors: AARP Rhode Island, David Abbott of Residential Properties, Cornish Associates, Lisk Rhode Island, Nelson Nygaard, the Ocean State Center for Independent Living, PAR Corporation, Rhode Island Housing, Rhode Island Public Transit Authority, Rhode Island Transit Riders, Union Studio Architecture and Community Design, VHB, Wind Companies, and ZDS Architecture and Interior Design. So before we get into the meat of the matter, I want to set the context a little bit more, provide a little perspective from Grow Smart's standpoint on what we think TOD is, what we think is the potential of TOD. So I'm going to give you our definition of TOD, and it's kind of, TOD is like a Rorschach's test. Everybody sees it in a different way. Our definition is that it's the planning and construction of communities that create compact mixed-use neighborhoods in close proximity to high-quality transit, where people can drive less and enjoy easy access to housing, jobs, amenities, services, and all of life's essentials. Sounds like a pretty good deal. So what does TOD mean for Rhode Island? What can it mean for Rhode Island? A lot of good things. More convenience, both for Rhode Islanders and visitors and tourists. More affordable and varied housing opportunities. More opportunities to naturally incorporate physical activity into one's daily routine without needing to join a gym or buy expensive exercise equipment. Not that I'm opposed to any of that, but not everybody can afford that or has the time for that. TOD also means for Rhode Island a lower cost of daily living by reducing a household's need for multiple cars, or in some cases, any cars. It means lower commute times. It means lower obesity rates and therefore improved public health. It means lower stress, and it means lower greenhouse gas emissions. So I just want to talk another minute about what I call TOD myth-busting. There's some conventional wisdom that transit-oriented development, while a great thing, is only suited to big metros, to big cities, to Boston, New York, Chicago, Philly, LA, not to smaller places like Providence or Hartford or Des Moines, Iowa. And that's in part, but if that ever was the case, it no longer is. And that's in part because of the growth in significant segments of the population who are seeking user-friendly neighborhoods where many of the amenities and services of daily life are within walking distance of a person's residence. Revolutionary concept in modern America, but nevertheless one that is starting to catch on. And TOD is also being embraced by small and mid-sized cities because a growing share of the population in a variety of locations is being priced out, frankly, of the single-family housing market, or actually prefers a multifamily housing model. Studies, in fact, from the National Association of Realtors and Smart Growth America show that there is much more demand for walkable mixed-use neighborhoods with good transit service than there is supply of such neighborhoods. And demand for TOD-style neighborhoods is especially strong among such key market segments as my crowd, baby boomers, young people, and single parents. Now, I think a major cause of this demand-supply mismatch is something Rhode Island is about to tackle in a bold and hopefully thoughtful way, and that is land use reform. Local zoning right now often doesn't allow the level of density and the mix of uses in one compact location that would make TOD economically and logistically feasible. So if we don't have the land use right and the land use regs and incentives right, TOD is not going to be able to flourish nearly as much as it otherwise could and should. But we think the times are changing, in no small measure because of our housing crisis. And we think that crisis is and should be forcing us to revisit our assumptions about what constitutes good neighborhoods, good housing arrangements, and good zoning codes. So TOD is now a highly viable and positive development model for many small and medium-sized cities, and we're going to hear much more about that shortly, both from our keynoter, Dan Rivera of Mass Development, and from the municipal CEOs of Pawtucket, Central Falls, Warwick, Brockton, Mass, and Warren.